till shade is gone,
till water is gone,
into the shadow with teeth bared,
screaming defiance with the last breath,
to spit in Sightblinder's eye on the last day.
by my honor and the light.
My life will be a dagger for Sightblinder's heart.
Until the last day. To Shia Ghul itself.
This is A Dagger for Sightblinder, a podcast focused on all things Wheel of Time, with your hosts,
Sarah Lucas
and Adam Tricola. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Dagger for Sightblinder. May you find shade this day. Sarah, it's been like an entire fancy vacation's worth of time since we've actually gotten to record together. How are you?
No, I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
I watched all of the Kenobi episodes.
Me too.
I watched them before you did.
Yeah. That's because I had no internet on my fancy vacation.
I know.
Yikes.
I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't feel as much on vacation if I didn't have internet. Like it's such an important way of life, and yet like the bizarre thing is, 50 years ago, people would have been like, "The what now?"
Oh yeah. Okay, so I shouldn't say no internet. I had internet if I sat in a very particular spot and like tilted my phone a very particular, like I'm not even exaggerating. I had to sit against the window and kind of hold it at an angle and tilt my body, and if I shifted at all, I would lose the 1 bar of service that my phone could get in that spot. So yeah, it was nice to just kind of unplug, but then I would get internet if I needed it for a few minutes, and then it's really not comfortable to sit with your neck at like a 45-degree angle.
Like this?
Yeah, for like long periods of time while you're holding your phone.
Should I just try to record the whole episode like this? Just to prove you're wrong for no reason?
Yeah, but you have to hold your phone.
Oh, deal's off.
Yeah. See? It's not fun. So yeah, anyway, it's been a long time.
Yeah, and geez, there's so much to talk about. So, yeah, Kenobi. We're talking about Kenobi here, and then I don't know what we were thinking about. Maybe starting watching the Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, I've only watched the first episode of that one, which I should probably just rewatch it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of them yet, but we're thinking about doing that. We'd love feedback on what you guys think of our discussion on the Kenobi stuff. Yeah. And you've started reading the Stormlight Archive a little bit.
I have. We're taking. I figured I didn't want to start the 5th book of Wheel of Time if we weren't going to talk about it right away, because I didn't want to forget anything. Right. So I like reading it while we're talking about it.
I agree. Yep.
So
yeah, all kinds of interesting stuff. We've even talked about doing some kind of like book club thing or something at some point.
Mm-hmm. We need to hash that out.
Yeah, we need to figure out all kinds of things for the show, but the show must go on. So let's talk about Kenobi episodes 5 and 6, which are among the more exciting variety of all of the episodes.
Right. Okay, so you said you watched this one way before me. So I want to ask you something, because we had different experiences with this, because you watched it, you had to wait a week between the 2 episodes?
Yeah, basically.
Was that frustrating? Because I basically watched episode 5, and then the next day I watched episode 6. Like I didn't have to wait.
It's a good question. I mean, that's no more frustrated. I mean, I was frustrated after watching the first 2.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I need the 3rd one right now.
Yeah.
And Disney Plus was like, dude, You're not getting it for another week.
You have to wait a week. Sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I watched episode 5. I was like, oh, I actually don't have to wait very long for the next episode. So I was just curious, but
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. It's I mean, the weekly streaming, it's such an interesting thing because I don't know, like I feel like all the streaming networks are doing this. I guess I haven't really gotten into a specific show on Netflix for a long
right.
time, but so you can correct me if I'm wrong because I know you watch a few more shows than me, but seems like initially when these streaming services came out, they
Mm-hmm.
just released all the entire. They were like, "Here, there's a season of 12 episodes. Here's all 12. Go
Yep.
forth and binge."
Yep.
And now it seems like they've gone into the more serialized, like more like TV, where it's like a new episode every week.
Yeah. Well, so the latest season of Stranger Things, they put all the episodes out except the last two. The second half of season 4 comes out next week. So they're making you wait, and they ended
Mm.
the first few episodes on like a cliffhanger of sorts. Um, so yeah, I think they are doing, and I don't know if it's. This is just my guess. I'm assuming they just don't want people binging and then canceling their subscription.
Yeah, that probably happens sometimes, huh?
Yeah, so it's a like, well, we'll just turn this into a weekly release because then you can't really cancel it.
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. Whether or not, I mean, I don't really feel, I don't really feel that taken advantage of. Like they spend a lot of money making these shows.
Right.
Like me paying $8 a month or whatever for myself, I don't really feel like it's a pretty good deal to have access to all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me. I hate waiting. I'm impatient.
Yeah, my dad ranted about it a while ago. Was it my dad? Someone was telling me how they just got rid of all their streaming services because it's so ridiculous. You have to pay like $24 a month, and I'm like, you used to pay for cable. It was like $80 a month. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't care about that. Hmm. Anyways,
All right.
we're kind of far afield.
Yeah.
So so Kenobi episode 5. Let's see. So how did 4 end? That was when they escaped from the fortress.
Yeah, and she had sent the like tracker with him,
Yeah,
which was just Lola.
episode 4, Triss. Yeah,
Yeah. So this one, oh, man,
it's evil Lola.
it's evil Lola. It's yeah, it basically is just, you know, that they're on this whatever planet they're on trying to escape, and she's obviously tracked them and she's letting Lord Vader know they're on Jabim.
Hmm.
So, what did you Okay. Let's just dive into like the big moment here because obviously Vader and Reva are having this like third sister are having this back and forth about it, and
Hmm.
she's letting him know that they're there, and he's just all like, oh, you've done so well, like great job, pat on the back, blah blah blah, blah, and then names her Grand Inquisitor. So what did you think of that?
Well, I was just weirded out actually. He named her. He named. So why did he promote her that like before he even that? Okay, so what if she had just fed him a line of BS
Right.
and said like, "Hey, oh yeah, they're on Jabim, sure. Oh, they're not here. Oh, but my tracker said they were. They must have escaped." Like,
Right. And like didn't actually do a good job like he said she did.
right.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, like so it made me think like I don't know. What I'm seeing in this, and this is more generalized just for the whole series. Vader is uh, like he's still growing in his role, but he just seems like a big ball of rage right now. Is all he
Right.
is. Like he's barely in control of anything in his life right now. Like instead of like once we see him in A New Hope and he's you know he's able to actually have these I don't know more controlled dialogues with people. Like right now, he's still just like he just seems really out of control. I don't know what a better way to say that,
Yeah,
frankly.
which is, I mean, it's interesting too when you point that out because when you think about it, like it's been 10 years, give or take.
Hmm.
So the fact that he's still having to grow and have these like I it sounds weird to say mature, but like mature basically is what he needs to do.
Yeah,
Um
no, but you're right. You're right. It does sound weird, but he does need to like because he's what it seems like.
he feels like an angry teenager right now.
Yeah, is that a term? Arrested Development. I know it's a show,
Mhm.
but like it's where like you're in this state of like you're not actually progressing in
Right.
life, and that happens. I know that like I've talked to recovering alcoholics and stuff before who say that like one of the issues of once you're if you're an alcoholic, like it's you stop maturing
Right.
in a lot of ways, and so you have a lot of growing up to do after you're done being an alcoholic because you're like there's some mental thing that's happening where you're just stuck where you've been or, where you're at the whole time,
Mhm.
and that's what it kind of feels like. It's like his rage is just
Stuck.
controlling him to the point where yeah he's just stuck because I mean I can understand him being totally out of control after he decides to turn to the dark side. And like that must be a hugely, I don't know, it sounds weird to say like stressful event for him, but
Right.
like he's betrayed his family basically, and he's decided to kill kids. He's decided to, do all this horrible stuff.
Mhm.
And, then he blames himself for killing his wife,
Mhm.
and he's tied himself to he knows the guy he's tied to is a monster. He can't like Palpatine. Like all of
Right.
the everything we have seen like shows he doesn't like the guy, really, not anymore. And but 10 years later he's still kind of in that state.
Right. That's a really good point though. Um okay, so I'm going to keep that in mind for later.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, so obviously they've tracked them. This was a lot, and they go there and like Riva goes down there on his orders kind of thing to go and get Kenobi out of there.
Oh, yeah, and
Um,
you can see Kenobi started like you started seeing it in episode 4 in that fortress
mhm.
where he's starting to get his mojo back, but then he gets there and he immediately takes charge.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge, and like what I also really liked in this episode were the flashback scenes
Oh yeah, that was really cool.
to like when they were training, and it just highlighted really well how Kenobi and Vader know each other and why he's able to
Hmm.
predict what Vader's going to do next. Um, which like you see, like he's like, oh yeah, he's going to attack next. Like he doesn't have patience. And they're like, oh well, like how do you know that? And it's just really nice to see that background because obviously, like we saw earlier, he knows that it's Anakin, and Third Sister knows that it's Anakin, but no one else does. Like Vader keeps that secret, guarded. Anyway, but we got a lot more flashbacks to not even flashbacks really, but more info on Riva, and like her being a youngling was confirmed and
Hmm.
all of that. So this I will say. So I already I think everyone pretty much had suspicions that she was a youngling. Like they hinted at it pretty strongly. I don't think I actually enjoyed how this came to light. It felt very forced, and I could tell what they were trying to do is they're trying to it felt like they were trying to make you have empathy for her and like see why she would want to be vengeful and like why she wants her revenge and everything. But it felt forced. It just didn't feel I don't know.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Just the whole conversation between her and Kenobi, like through that doorway, just felt so weird.
I thought it was okay. I think so. We're used to like the redemption narrative, right?
Right.
Where it's like Luke can redeem Vader, and even in Rebels, like Ahsoka tries to redeem Vader a little bit
Mm-hmm.
at least, and like you also have like the tug of war in episode 7, 8, and 9, where Kylo, it's like in 8 they're like, he's like, no, you Kylo can't be redeemed, and then in 9 JJ Abrams is like, yes he can. And
Yeah.
yeah, like everyone wants to be redeemed, and so it feels a little bit like Obi-Wan is like, oh man, you're hunting him. That means you're like, we're both good guys here. And
Right.
Reva's just like, no, like I'm still dark side. Like screw you, man. Like
Right.
I don't want your help. I'm self-sufficient. I'm enough.
Right. Which
Like
was the vibe towards the end of her conversation, but like in the beginning of it, when it was first turning to her, like talking about that was her only family and he slaughtered them, and like it felt weird to see her vulnerable. Like
well,
in that moment, she looked so vulnerable, and it felt weird.
and then you could tell she rejected that vulnerability and just closed the doors, kind of.
Right.
Which actually, she actually opened the doors, which is another. So okay, so there she's like, the rebels can hole up in there for days, for weeks, and then she goes and literally like 1 second later, the door is cut open
Yeah.
with her lightsaber.
She's just like, yeah, no, we're not waiting around for this.
I was just like, why didn't you do that in the first place? Like she's just like, zoom,
Yeah.
done.
Oh
Just gets
man.
through it. It was maybe the dumbest thing in any of the episodes. I was
Right.
like,
You could have saved so much time. You wouldn't have had to worry about them holding up for days either.
yeah, I was just like,
Hmm.
okay. And then the subsequent firefight where none of the rebels died and a bunch of stormtroopers died.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a battle scene, so of course you didn't pay any attention to it. But there's like a scene, there's like this shot as they're like leaving the initial cavern,
Hmm.
and it's just littered with the corpses of stormtroopers. And I paused it. There's literally no rebel,
Oh,
like
you paused
no.
it?
Yeah, well, the second time I watched it, because I watched it all. I watched it 2 times. I watched it once by myself, and then the second time I would watch it with my boys,
Yeah.
because I wanted to make sure didn't have anything too crazy, or if I needed to fast forward something for them or something,
Right.
which I didn't actually. I was fine even with my 4-year-old watching everything. Some of
Hmm.
the times were a little scary, and I made him come sit with me. We
Hmm.
could snuggle, and he could keep him okay, but you know maintain his expectations a little bit, just help him through it. But anyways, the yeah, it was nice to have that, because there's some of the shows today, like some of the Marvel stuff especially, I'm like, sorry guys, I'm just not okay with you guys watching it till you're older. But
Right. Which is fair.
anyways, yeah, I mean every parent's got to make their own determinations, of course. But uh anyways, the yeah, so I paused it the second time just to see there were no corpses of rebels, which, I mean, I don't know. So stormtroopers are bad shots and all that, but there. Okay, so there is this one thing that kind of drives me crazy. There's this narrative that stormtroopers are bad shots.
Yeah. They always miss.
They always miss. I know, millions of puns and jokes and memes and everything about stormtroopers missing. And
Hmm.
I get it. There's a lot of instances where they do miss, but there's also a lot of times that they do. I mean, if you look in episode 4 at the very first scene where they board the ship,
Hmm.
like the Imperials just annihilate the rebels.
Right.
Like the rebels just get crushed, just destroyed. because the stormtroopers are good shots, and in this case, it's not even rebel soldiers. These are refugees.
Yeah, they're not fighters.
Yeah, like a few of them are, but for the most part, it's like they're just running away. They're trying to get
Right.
away, and none of them are dead. Even though there's this huge, Obi-Wan is protecting a bunch of them, batting back lights, with his lightsaber. But
This scene, I will say, this is the only part of the episode that I cried during.
what?
This like fight in after she like opens the door and they're pushing in on them and
Oh, you cried.
oh yeah.
What happened?
What do you mean what happened? Why did I cry?
Uh, yes. Oh, okay. So I'm sorry if that was sounded insensitive. The fight scene was more confusing to me than emotional. So I'm curious to see what was emotional about it.
So it wasn't the initial fight scene. It was later on when Tala was basically going to sacrifice herself.
Okay, okay.
But
That had a little bit more.
I didn't cry about that. I actually cried because of the droid protecting her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that was touching.
it felt very, 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 very Rogue One K2SO ish to me,
Yeah.
and that scene just kills me in Rogue One. So
hmm
it made me cry.
Well, it
I
just
cried for the droid.
I'm like, are we all crazy? Like, they have this is galaxy of slavery is
Yeah.
what it's like. Slave wars is what it is. Like these droids are sentient. Like they've been programmed to have preferences and to
Mm-hmm.
have personalities. Like they're people.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just like a person. You can delete the things in their brain if you cut the right way. Like
Right.
same thing. Like, just because we don't have buttons specifically, like that's all they. Go wipe his memory. That's like horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the droid's like, oh crap. Like they don't have any recourse. They're just like, I guess I'll just not have a memory anymore.
Right.
And so Ned B, they're like, no, we're not going to let you talk. Like, you don't need to talk, you stupid slave. Like,
It's just sad.
I know, and yet he
Like,
chose to protect her. Like, you're right. It does tug at. You're right. I did feel emotional there. I was separating that scene
mm-hmm.
with the initial burst in.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, but people aren't even like good people aren't even dying. It's just like it's just like the slave stormtroopers who are
Yeah.
all robots themselves too.
Yeah. Oh man, which is just sad.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, you're right. Tala, yeah, I was sad. Um,
yeah.
this is such an interesting episode because I feel like there was some of the strongest and some of the weakest parts of the whole season
Right.
in it. Because yeah, like I figured Tala might die. I didn't. I wanted her to have more of a storyline with Obi-Wan. I mean, I've said a few times I wanted them to hook up, just jokingly, but I mean, I wouldn't have minded him having some kind of a romantic,
Right.
even if it was more like courtly love, where they just both really admired and liked each other
Mm-hmm.
from afar, kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that, like, I knew she was gonna, but I didn't want her to anyways. It
Right.
was sad. I've always liked that actress. So.
It was sad. So, and I do agree with you. It did. This episode was kind of like had a lot of really strong points, and then it also had some points that you're just like, it's kind of a miss.
So I did have like a really proud daddy moment actually.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so Tala's got the thermal detonator. She's gonna blow everyone up,
Yep.
and she's like saving Obi-Wan basically, and saving everyone else. And so I pause and I'm like, okay, boys, do you understand what's going on? And they didn't quite understand what was happening.
Right.
And so I kind of explain like, well, she's sacrificing herself. She's making sure that everyone else can get to the next place safely. And like there needed to be someone to do that, or it was just gonna, everyone was just gonna kind of die right then.
Right.
And so my boys were both, okay, that they got it. And then once the episode was over, we turned off the TV, and my oldest was like, he was like, Daddy, I think if everyone was going to die and they needed one person to die instead to save everyone else, I would do that.
Oh.
And then my 4-year-old is like furiously thinking, you could see the wheels turning in his head. And he's like, I would do that too. I would die for everyone. I was like, that was when I cried. I teared up. I was like, oh God. Just a gut punch.
Yeah, you're like, let's not think of that being an option, but
no.
also proud moment.
Yeah, like, oh, you
Oh.
guys are awesome.
Oh.
So yeah, proud daddy moment. But anyways, they yeah, and it's moments like that I'm like, oh, this is why we watch these shows. There's a lot of good teachable moments. So but yeah, you're right. Ned B protecting her was touching her. Okay, so there's this phenomenon in Star Wars that we've noticed. Like Rebels does it all the time. A lot of different shows. Control panels to doors.
Yeah.
If you shoot them, they do exactly what the person shooting them wants to happen. You shoot them, sometimes the door opens. Sometimes you shoot them and the door locks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you shoot them and the door closes.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know, except all you know is that whenever the actors shoots the panel,
It will
the
do.
thing that they want happens.
Right. It's true.
So so in this case, Tala shoots the panel, and Obi-Wan is closed out.
So, like, doesn't it make more sense if you shoot a panel that it would just be frozen in whatever position that it's in? So if it's open, it stays open.
Mm-hmm.
If it's closed, it stays
Yeah.
closed, because you are essentially breaking it at that point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so.
Okay, cool. So,
Unless the system has some kind of a thing where it's like, well, the doors all need to be closed for security reasons, unless there's an override, in place. So if there's like a default in the system, then it's like, okay, well, that control panel isn't capable of deciding, of overriding the default, so we're going to put it back to the default.
right.
But yeah, I would just think, yeah, it's broken.
Yeah.
Just frozen where it's at. But I don't know. It's just, like watch all the Star Wars things. I guess not necessarily but the shows are all, the animated shows that they shoot control panels, they open, they close, they lock.
They do all the things, but it's always what is needed or wanted.
Well, okay, so yeah, it's like the rebels are being chased in the Rebels show. They're being chased. They shoot the control panel. It opens the door for them. And then they close the door behind them. Can't the stormtroopers just shoot the panel as well and open the door? But no, they're locked. They're locked behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I forgot to mention the whole reason why, like, Tal is doing this and buying them time is because the, like, electrical wiring, I guess, like, is shot. They can't open the hatch to get out of there for these refugees to take off in the ship, and obviously Vader and them are coming in, and Leia is up and I laughed so hard. So she has to climb up into these like vents to look around, and she doesn't have to, but that Haja kind of has this idea to like, hey, like let's go look around in the vents type thing, and Rogan's like, well, like I'm not small enough, and she just volunteers, and she doesn't even volunteer, like, oh, like I'll do it. She's just like, yeah, I need a ladder, like,
yeah, I'll need a ladder,
and is so bossy about it, like,
yeah.
In true demanding, like not even demanding, but like commanding fashion.
Well, yeah, she's royalty. She's like, you would deny me a ladder? You deny me a ladder? Yeah, yeah. It's and at the same time, I really like that she kind of had a little, I don't know, like exchange with Tala, or not Tala, with
Haja.
Haja, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
A few times, like even in the 6th one as well. But yeah, he was. I think one of my the most hilarious scene was like, hey, how's Leia doing? And so he yells up, he's like, Leia, how are you doing? And she's like, I'm busy. And Haja, like the guy who's who's standing next to Hodge, clearly hears her, and Hodge is like, she's busy.
Ah, man. I really enjoyed when he was kind of just telling her, like, it's a red one, and, like, how's it looking, like, feeding her questions.
Right.
She's just like, stop talking. Like, just
Yeah.
like, F off. Let me work here.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't know. Like, so these are some very restrained adults here because
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, if my life depended on my sons working in some little duct or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like I trust them to be trying to do the right thing, but I'd also trust them to get distracted and just be playing this, some other
Right.
random game inside of it, because that's what little boys do, at least. I mean, little girls I know are different, but like I was shocked today. I was mowing the lawn in the front, and I was like, boys, you need to like pick up the backyard and put everything on the patio so that we can actually, so I can mow when I get back there. And they actually just did it from start to finish with me asking once.
Right.
And my wife asked, like, I told her about it, and I was like, yeah, they just needed once. And she was like, she thought I was messing with her.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's so consistent that kids get distracted
Right.
from everything. And that's just how it always is. They're like, that's just, and so Leia is up there for a long time, and all of their hopes are completely tied to what
Mm-hmm.
she's doing,
Right.
and the adults are just letting her basically, like, they ask her a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
but otherwise they're very polite about it, and that's it. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I would be like, come on, Leia, I need an update. Give
Mm-hmm.
me like, let me know, like,
Right.
actually verify that you're actually working on this, that you actually understand what's going on.
See, I enjoyed it because I looked at it from my point of view of in my actual like job, real world job, I
Hmm.
have to solve problems, and I react the way Leia reacted there, where she was like, stop talking. Like, when people check on me when I'm trying to solve a problem, I'm like, leave me alone. I'm trying to solve it. Don't help and don't talk to me. Like, that's my reaction was how Leia reacted, and I was like, this is hilarious. Um, so I just viewed it from that point of view. I didn't view it from the point of her, which, like, what you're saying makes sense. Like, she's a 10-year-old. Of course, she's probably going to get distracted. But
Well, probably girls are better at focusing at that age, anyways, frankly, than little
probably.
boys. And I don't have much experience with little girls, but I just, yeah, as a parent, I'm like, I would feel like even if I trust my boys to get things done and want to get things done, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still just like, they need a little bit of guidance, a little bit. Like they're just not ready yet, and that's fine. That's nothing. That's how they're built. And so, like, I can imagine as an adult, though, who maybe if you don't even have kids,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine other, like, you're right. Her response is the way a lot of people would react.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a lot of people would be like, our fate is in the hands of a kid. She's not even responding. Like,
Yeah. What's going on?
you know, yeah, it was fine. I did think that the duct thing was almost more of a reason, like a way to get her out of the main scene,
Okay.
like out
Mm-hmm.
of the main, out of the spotlight, which is fine. She needed something to do instead of just sitting on her hands.
Right. You need to make her do something. And it doesn't really, I mean, I wouldn't say it gives her like any character growth or anything like that. Like, if
No,
anything, we're just seeing her react and treat people the way she's always done it so
yeah.
far in the series. So,
This is probably, and this isn't even negative. I think this is her weakest episode
mm-hmm.
out of all six of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the other ones were all just really strong, and this one was like, she just like literally got stuck in an air vent the whole time.
Right.
But you know, they
Right.
needed to focus on other things. You don't want her to be distracting, and they put her in charge of something kind of important. So yeah. And then Obi-Wan decides to be honorable
Mm-hmm.
and give himself up.
Right. Which
What were your
is,
thoughts on that?
um, so when I expected him to do that.
Hmm.
I didn't expect it to be that like he would do that, and then it was more of like a encounter with third sister than Vader. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, okay, well, like, I'll give myself up. But, like, clearly he had a plan. And you knew this. Like, you knew that he had thought through what he was going to do because of this interaction that he had earlier, where he was like, he's going to come down and attack next. Like, he doesn't have patience. You could see, and because the episode was interspersed with all of those flashback scenes from their training,
Hmm.
you could see that he was piecing these bits together and figuring out a plan that would take advantage of Vader's weaknesses.
I mean, so I know you started to read The Lies of Locke Lamora. You didn't like it as much, but
Right.
this episode felt very, very, very much like that novel, the craft of it. Because
Okay.
so what happens in Lies of Locke Lamora? I'm not going to give away the plot details, so no spoilers there. But the craft, I'll talk about a little bit. So, like they'll tell you like what's happening in real time. Like there's the story that's happening. It's like okay, the main character and his friends are doing these things, this and this, and then when a major plot point comes up, they do a flashback to what happened when one of them was a kid, or what
Yeah.
happened, and you see the development of them as a kid to get them to the headspace, to the point where they're like to what they're doing in real time makes sense. You're like, oh, that's why he said what he did. And
Mm-hmm.
so like the craft like bounces back and forth, and it's a really cool nuanced way to get a really deep look at a character. Of you see what's happening in the main storyline, but then you have all of these different branches of flashbacks of like, oh, that's cool, like that's why they're so loyal to each other, that's why, like how
Right.
it's a lot of fun to see that, and he's just slowly unfolding and unfurling, like what these characters really are. And that's what this scene was in Kenobi, was like every move that Kenobi made was based off of his basic like just fundamental understanding of what Anakin
Mm-hmm.
truly was.
Yep. Exactly. So you got to see that and then figure out why they were doing what they were doing. Um,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really liked that aspect of the craft of this episode.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so this was good, and I mean, it was also kind of cool to see because not only was he doing that, and you saw that through the flashbacks, but you could also see based off the conversation that he had with Riva that he was manipulating her emotions to get what he wanted.
Yeah, it was a little bit like just a little bit dark on his end of
Mm-hmm.
like let's drag her into it. Like clearly she does, he's like, well, she's probably wouldn't be better off fighting Vader at all.
Right.
Like,
Right, and
but
then
but I'm gonna just use that anyways because that's what I need.
yeah, which is
I like it when people show a little bit of ruthlessness. I don't know, like you can't you need that. Like if you're gonna succeed, if you're gonna win, like there's some things you just I don't know. She's proven herself intransigent. She doesn't want to help him. She doesn't. So he's like, well, I'll use you anyways.
yeah, yeah. So he does. Um. Okay.
And then she sends him into the complex with two storm like so she
Mm-hmm.
they got a little base camp. And this seemed like what do you what's even this didn't make any sense to me. So okay, you have this high profile prisoner
Mm-hmm.
that you've captured for your master. Whether or not you like the master is irrelevant. Like if you're pretending to be on his team, wouldn't you think the high profile prisoner sits in the middle of all of your troops and you will stare at him until
Until
Darth
you're
Vader comes down?
right.
You
Instead
like
of
you don't blink, you just wait. Instead of here's two stormtroopers go into the place that we don't actually have all the way secure.
I wonder if this was more of a like, and I don't know, I'm just guessing. Like, I wonder if he actually was getting under her skin a little bit, and it was more of a like, he needs to not be near me.
Hmm. Could be.
I don't know. But I do agree with you. It makes way more sense to just stare him down, wait for Darth Vader to show up. No shenanigans happen.
Yeah, just like stay on your knees. No, oh, you stood, like you're dead now.
Right.
Sorry, Lord Vader. Like he's dead, but here's the body.
Yeah.
Go put them in your trophy room or whatever weird crap you're into.
Um, okay, so obviously, I just want like let's highlight the fact that Vader comes down and he's just like, "Yep, Kenobi's mine," and goes in there solo and is like, "I'm gonna find them," and you know, this whatever refugee ship aircraft is taking off, and he uses the
Mm-hmm.
force to pull it back down and is ripping the siding off of it, and you're like, okay, like stuff's gonna happen. Um, and then he realizes it's a decoy ship because it was empty. And the
Yeah.
actual one takes off after the fact.
But okay, so who was flying the
I had
decoy
that
ship though?
thought. First of all, who was flying that ship? How did he not see the decoy one when it was in the air? Because it would have been sitting there anyway, like out in view. And that ship, he walks in, that ship's taking off, and he immediately just is like, yeah, force, and like grabs the ship. Why wouldn't you
Mm-hmm.
do that with the next one?
I think the him grabbing it thing was more like the first time it was like instinctive and he was still full of power. I would imagine that
He'd be like drained.
probably like maybe not all the way, clearly not because of the like he was able to fight that have his next fight scene be pretty good. But yeah, like I would imagine like dragging a ship
Mm-hmm.
out of flight would take a lot out of a disabled man such as himself.
Okay. But I did
So,
have that thought of who was flying
but
that
yeah,
ship.
yeah, I was like, what happened to that person?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay, so obviously, like, Kenobi gets the revenge, and she decides to just try to attack Vader with his back turned. Um,
mhm.
and this was a pretty. I enjoyed this. It was a pretty good fight scene. It was mixed in with flashbacks.
I love how dominant Vader was. He's like so so disrespectful of her skills, like so
Mm-hmm.
disdainful of just like, okay, if I'm gonna have to fight you with a lightsaber, I'm just gonna use half of your lightsaber that I stole from you. Like I'm not even gonna
Right.
dirty my own weapon on you, you filth. Like,
Yeah, just and snaps hers in half. Does throw her the other half though, which is kind of like interesting. I thought that was pretty cool.
he's
Um,
toying with her.
yeah, he's totally toying with her. I just still thought it was
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, I loved
Um,
it. I loved this scene. Like,
yeah, and just like his whole like, did you not think I saw this coming, youngling or whatever
yeah,
the
he called
like.
her youngling.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it was like just the right amount of like creepy and like makes you just be like, oh, it's Vader.
Hmm.
Um, I did have okay, so obviously like she doesn't succeed here, and he's she's on her knees in front of him, and then like the other Grand Inquisitor comes out, and obviously like that I most people were speculating something must have happened for him to not actually die when she had stabbed him a few episodes ago, because he's obviously in Rebels. Um, my immediate thought here, like, 'cause this whole interaction happens, he had a great line about revenge making the will to live,
Yeah.
like, be strong, or whatever his exact wording was. I got it wrong, but I thought that was a great line. I want to know, like, he came out, I'm like, okay, but, like, how did you survive? Like, what happened? Like,
Well, I mean, I imagine he had a communicator of some sort. He was able to just like,
I imagine that too, but it just made me curious. Like, that was my
well,
thought process.
well, you have to. So, like, why did Riva just leave him there? Like, why didn't she just chop his head off?
Right.
Like, she just stabbed him, and then there's this because it's this huge loose end. Like, if he survives
Mm-hmm.
somehow, because Maul gets chopped in half and he lives,
Right.
so there's precedent. Like lightsabers, I think lightsabers are too forgiving when they stab people because they also cauterize the wound. Like, there's not a ton of bleeding, probably. Like,
Right.
maybe that's part of it, or also he's not a human
Right.
either. He's from Utapau, like he's an Utapawan,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Like, who knows what vital organs are in his, like, maybe nothing is there. Maybe all this vital organs are stuffed somewhere else. But one way or another, I mean, he's a force user, and he hates, and he wants revenge, and he survives.
It was fine. It was just one of those other things where I just was curious about it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just a clear like you said, Vader's toying with her, and it felt very much like they were both toying with her in that moment, and you know, yeah. So Grand Inquisitor lives, the original,
Hmm.
and then at the end of this episode, I really enjoyed this. She is obviously like stabbed, and they leave her there. And she finds Kenobi's communicator on the ground that he had dropped that had that message on
Freaking
it.
Haja had it, and he dropped it.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Sorry. And it had the message on it saying, like that he hadn't heard
Hmm.
from Organa hadn't heard from him, and he was getting worried. And if he didn't hear from him in the next few days, he was going to go to Tatooine to help Owen with the boy, and Vader can't know about the kids. Like this whole thing, so you can see the gears turning in her head. But what I actually really loved was the ending scene being on a shot of Luke sleeping in bed. Like I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, yeah, it was really nice, really really well done. Of like, oh crap, we're gonna have to go back to, and she already had the interaction with Owen.
Yeah, exactly.
Or yeah, yeah, you're like, oh crap. They already set the precedent that a lightsaber through the guts in this show is not gonna kill a Force user probably,
Right.
and also that Force users are not going to assume that the others can survive. Like, you'd think, okay, so Grand Inquisitor's like, we're just gonna leave you in the gutter, trash. First off, how does she get out? Like, is there another transport just somewhere?
Who knows?
But because she can't have made it that far. Like, is that transport the Vader like brought down available still? Like, is that
Right.
still gonna work? But otherwise, why do people keep giving each other extra chances? Like this happens in episode 6 as well, actually. And I'm like,
Chop off their heads.
why don't people assume other powerful adversaries of theirs are why do they just like, oh, you must be dead?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I mean, it's whatever, but
Okay. So I feel like that's a good segue. We can talk about episode 6, the
yeah.
finale.
So real quick, episode 5, where does it rank for you?
Oh
And you can add 6 to it, to the overall, like, so even though we haven't talked about 6. So
man,
best episode versus worst episode. What's 5 for you?
it's probably like in the top of the middle, like three, maybe 4.
Kind of like your third favorite.
Yeah.
Okay. Fourth.
I did.
Okay.
I did like it. Like it had a lot was happening, but it also had a lot of stuff that you were just like, oh, okay. Oh, but I cried during this one. Yeah, so I'd probably say it was third.
Okay.
What about you?
Hmm. That's a tough question. Why did you have to ask me that? um. Yeah. I don't know. Like it's really hard to rate like the first two because not much happens, kind of.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like this was one of the like there are a lot of things that I noticed, like inconsistencies on this one that I noticed that weren't in the other ones. And I don't know. I would say this is one of the weaker episodes to me, actually. Even though there was some important stuff that happened, and there was a lot of things I liked. I have just really enjoyed the heck out of this show. I don't know. Like maybe it's like my fourth, like number 4,
Yeah.
something like that.
Which is fair.
I don't know what I'd rank. Like I guess the one with the mole man was probably a little bit worse.
Mole man, I forgot about him. Okay.
What a weirdo. All right, so episode 6. All right, so going into this one, how did you think it would end?
Okay, so you know that you need a fight between Vader and Kenobi still. Like, it hasn't
Oh yeah,
happened.
like fans would be super pissed. Like Kenobi's
Yes.
gone through kind of a transformation. He's a new man,
Hmm.
and Vader is chasing him. Yeah, how robbed would you have felt if it was like, no, this is the last episode, they didn't fight.
Oh man, it would be awful. It would
Yes.
legitimately. It would be a terrible, terrible decision. So many people would be mad.
Well, even if the fight scene like didn't end up being like yeah, essentially, what's the point of this show if they don't have some kind of lightsaber fight?
Right. So.
Like they already. Though I will say, there's a small argument. I was thinking about this of if they didn't fight in a way. Okay, so there's this the line that I keep paying attention to is in episode 4. uh like Vader and Obi-Wan are talking, and he says, when last we met, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
Hmm.
And Kenobi's like, only a master of evil, Darth, which is funny because you could almost read into it like as a dead Jedi council. He's like, you're not a master.
Yeah. Yeah.
but 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 you could just like, because he schooled Vader super hard on, like he pulled all the strings to get everyone off of that planet.
Hmm.
He tricked Vader big time, and in a way, like that shows Kenobi's mastery over Vader.
Right.
like
Right.
like
Because
Vader
he
might.
he knows Vader better. I don't want to say
Yeah.
better, but he knows him so well that he's able to predict what he's going to do so that
Hmm.
he can come up with this plan that will work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Vader may be more physically dominant, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. Right. Um,
I mean, well, it does mean something, but it means like he's still playable. Like you still, Kenobi still has game
mhm.
against him. That's all. So yeah, you have to have them fighting. What else?
I mean, you obviously know that Reva's going to go after Luke, which I wasn't too sure what to expect with that.
Hmm.
We still haven't seen Qui-Gon or heard from Qui-Gon. We haven't even heard his voice. Like Kenobi has not gone through to him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the big thing though that I was thinking out was a Vader and Kenobi showdown,
Hmm.
and then obviously Reva was going to go after Luke for whatever reason. I expected her. I didn't even really expect her to go after him. I expected her to like go and like confirm the information. I I almost expected her to like use that as a way to buy favor, because the message obviously said like if Vader finds out about the kids, like whatever.
Hmm.
So when I first saw it at the end of episode 5, when she was listening to the message, it felt like it felt like she was trying to come up with a plan to use that information to buy some favor with Vader. So I was expecting more of that type of a thing, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, so my predictions at the start were, yeah, Vader and Kenobi
Mhm.
fight each other.
Mhm.
Um, Riva is gonna go for Luke, and my prediction was that Bail Organa was going to save Luke.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
So then it would be like Kenobi saved Bail Organa's kid, and
Mhm.
Bail Organa saved Obi-Wan's kid
Right.
in a way.
Right. They just like reversed or whatever.
Yeah, well, because of what Bail Organa, he was like, I okay, well, if I don't hear from you, I'm going to go to Tatooine because Owen's going to need help with Luke.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
So those are the two big things, and then the thing I really really hoped for was that we'd find like there would be a plausible reason that Leia wouldn't just be linked to Obi-Wan, and the Bail Organa wouldn't just be linked to Obi-Wan, because otherwise, I mean, you have to think of. I mean, I always laugh at the end of Rogue One and then the start of Episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
So Episode 4, Leia's captured in her ship by Darth Vader,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, we're on a diplomatic mission from Alderaan, and Vader at the end of Rogue One watches their ship blast off from the profundity, like from the rebel fleet.
Yeah.
Like he sees that ship leaving the rebel fleet with the plans. He knows for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen it with his own eyes. It's not just supposition. It's not like I hope they have it. There's a 90% chance they have it. So probably it's like I saw your ship and now you're telling me to my face
Mm-hmm.
that like you don't have the plans, like stop treating me like an idiot kind of thing.
Right.
And it's more of that of like if Vader sees like I don't know how they don't link like okay, they kidnapped Leia and then Kenobi just appears
Right.
and Vader doesn't see that as a way to leverage Kenobi into more action later.
Right, because you're kind of just like, how did Riva know to kidnap Leia as a way to
Right.
draw out Kenobi?
Right. Well, unless she just didn't tell him which senator, but if they knew that it was a senator's kid,
Mm-hmm.
they probably knew which senator.
Mm-hmm.
And it just I wanted to see some way that Vader wasn't like, oh, so as long as we mess with her, like clearly Organa's linked to Kenobi, and if we mess with his family enough, Kenobi's gonna come to the rescue again and I'll get Kenobi.
Right.
So I wanted some kind of way for them to obscure that tie, that connection.
Okay. Okay. That's fair.
Those are my three like predictions and hopes. Oh, and I figured that Qui-Gon would show up too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
I thought maybe okay, so I thought maybe actually Qui-Gon would come and like somehow intervene between Kenobi and Vader in their fight,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how Kenobi would like
Oh,
still be the master.
right. And get away kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, I
I like
had
that.
all sorts of thoughts. Anyways, so they're on a ship. They're like, "Hey, we just left on a ship that doesn't have a hyperdrive for some reason. So
Yep.
wrong ship that we left on. Oops,
Oops. We're in trouble.
oopsies. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and then while they're doing that, Reva's, looking for Owen and Luke on
hmm
Tatooine. She's shown up and is clearly still injured, hasn't healed.
hmm
Um, the the initial start of this one felt slower because they were all, I don't even want to say slower, but like you said,
Oh, you're right.
they're on this ship where they don't have a hyperdrive, so it's a lot of like, oh, this new problem has presented itself. We have another hurdle to get over, and another option for Kenobi to, volunteer, so to speak, or step up and go on his own to draw
Yeah.
Vader away from them.
Yep.
Which works because Vader wants to only follow Kenobi, even though the Grand Inquisitor's like, no, like let's not hunt this one Jedi. Like let's go after all of these Force sensitive people that are escaping, these refugees.
Yeah.
And Vader's like, no, because he's exactly like what we were saying earlier. Like he hasn't had this growth. Like he's still fixated so heavily on Kenobi.
He's stuck.
He's stuck. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Leia's obviously, she stays on the ship. It's very minimal Leia here too. I think like she's obviously upset that Kenobi's gonna leave, but that's the decision that he's doing to give them enough time to fix the hyperdrive so that they can get out of there. And
Yeah.
Vader follows him down to whatever planet he goes to.
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple. So like he has that interaction. I just loved. I loved that Leia was like helping people on the. She's
Yeah.
like, oh, Lola's here to help, and she doesn't want Kenobi to leave. You promised, blah blah blah, and then Kenobi has this really funny interaction with the so-called leader guy, the
Mm-hmm.
bearded man,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "There aren't many leaders left. Don't stop being a leader." And I'm like, I never see this guy again. Like, I bet he dies. I bet he has. I bet he has a heart attack in a week, like or
Oh,
whatever. That's not like a comment on his way. I bet he just dies
right.
though. Like I we never see him again. Or maybe we'll get a Disney spin-off.
I
Roken. Like
Rogan. I was thinking that. I was like,
uh,
we don't see this guy. Like, we don't even hear
yeah.
about him or anything. So, anyway,
Yeah.
whatever.
Plenty
Um,
of time for him to do important things for the rebellion and die before we see more rebellion things.
I did really like here as well Kenobi's interactions with Haja again, and he
Yeah.
wants him to watch out
Hmm.
after Leia, make sure she gets home, like all this kind of stuff, and like give him his word. And I really enjoyed it. It was just it stayed in character with who Haja is. He's like, yeah, I'll do it, but like I'm a scam artist kind of thing. So
Yeah.
take
Well,
my
and
word for what
Obi-Wan.
it's worth.
Well, but Obi-Wan clearly, like, in a way, he sees through Haja's own sense of self. Like, he
Hmm.
sees a deeper, and he's like, Haja's like kind of joking a little. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to be a real Jedi." Like,
Right.
he doesn't even believe himself. But in some ways, Obi-Wan is like, no, there's more value to this guy because he singles him out. He doesn't single anyone else out
Hmm.
to like you take care of Leia. You deal with like Leia is so important. He sees that
Yeah.
in Haja somehow that he's the guy to do it, and he's repaid by that because like Leia won't talk to Obi-Wan. She's refusing to for him to see that Leia or that Obi-Wan needs to go, and then Haja has a talk with her,
Hmm.
and then she can talk to him.
Yeah.
Like
And
he opens the
he's like, ah,
doors.
I talked to her for you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you're like, oh, let me roll my eyes.
Yeah.
But it worked. Like it's just this. I don't know. He didn't have much screen time, but I actually truly enjoyed Hodge's presence in this show.
Yeah.
He was, best secondary character
Yeah.
in my opinion. Like way better than like Fifth Brother or any of the other,
I agree.
Inquisitors and stuff. I really liked him.
I agree. Um okay, so we get Kenobi down on the planet and Vader follows him, and I really liked how this whole thing played out for the rest of the episode. You have amazing juxtaposition between Riva and Vader. And,
Hmm.
he's down and interacting with Kenobi, and she's down there interacting with Owen and Beru. And then they're fighting, and
Yeah.
she's fighting them. Like, it's just this great back and forth where you have
Hmm.
both of these things happening at the same time. And I really like that they did it that way.
Oh yeah, totally. I really liked that too.
Hmm.
I really loved. I also just loved like the little scenes with Luke, and Luke is like, "We broke something on our speeder," and
Yeah.
I love how exasperated Owen was. Like I really liked the way he portrayed his character. He's like, "I'm not that patient."
Hmm.
Like and you could tell he's not. He's like exasperated with stupid Luke breaking his freaking speeder.
Yeah.
But at the same, like Luke's like, "Yeah, I broke it, but we're gonna get a new belt. Like I'm the best pilot."
Yeah, it'll be fine. Everything's good. Yeah, no, I did really like it.
And then,
They were really good at like weaving in these bits of their personality.
well, and I loved the backbone that Owen and Baru showed. Like instead of just running, Baru's like, "No, like we're gonna fight.
Hmm.
Like we're gonna protect him. We're enough."
Hmm. Yeah, it was
And
really good.
yeah, I just loved like you could see like we're digging in.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you could. I felt for a minute there. It felt like they were in the Two Rivers
Right. Okay. Yeah.
in Wheel of Time, where they're like, we're not just gonna leave. There's Trollocs everywhere. We're all gonna get killed. They're
Mhm.
like, no, this is our place, and screw you. Like
Yeah.
we're just gonna. This is our. We're gonna hold.
Yeah. We're not gonna run and endanger other people along the way. Like,
Yeah, like
yeah.
we're gonna hold. We'll be okay. I don't know. I love that spirit of
Yeah.
you're threatening me. Like okay, I'm not as strong as you, but screw you anyways. Like
Hmm.
I'm gonna find a way through. Like I'm not gonna just be easy meat. Like I'm not. You're. It's not gonna make. I'm not gonna let it be easy for you.
Right. Um, with this, with Owen and Beru in particular, with this whole scene, the one thing that I didn't really love was Riva was so focused on Luke that she was kind of just like throwing Beru and Owen aside, and like
Yeah.
she, it almost felt like she wasn't even trying to injure them in a way. Like she was just trying to like get them out of her way so that she could get to Luke. And
Right.
because she was doing that, I just kept thinking, I'm like, what is the point? Like, what is your end goal here? Because what do you
Right.
think is going to happen once you get to Luke? Like, if you don't do
Because
something to injure them or kill them to stop them from coming after you, what's the next step here?
well, I actually loved this. You're right because like she didn't kill them. I think she super respected them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Mm-hmm.
like I think that on like a really fundamental level, she's like because she had that Jedi protector in the temple, like in the first episode. Like the clones are coming in, and the protector was like killing all the clones and protecting the like, let's go, and like I think and there's a lot of these discussion, like even in her talk with Owen of like, oh, you protect your family, and in the first episode, and then in this episode, she says like, you really love him. It's just like you really treat him like he's your own, and
Mm-hmm.
and I loved his line. He's like, he is our own, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a
you
good
know,
point. I didn't think of it like that, but it was just one of those things where I was like, but that also like it just highlights it even more. Like they're protecting him. So what does she
mhm.
think is gonna happen once she gets to him? Like it to me, I'm like it makes more sense to hurt them or kill them now before you get to him because it'll make the second half of whatever you're trying
Sure.
to do significantly easier versus you get to Luke and now you're dragging this kid who may or may
Hmm.
not be unconscious depending on how you get him, could be kicking and screaming so to speak, but you have both of his guardians coming after you still. Like,
Well, I think it showed how conflicted she was.
yeah.
Truly, I don't think she knew what she was gonna do. Like I think she knew it was gonna happen,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't know. Like she was too distracted. You're right. Like
She didn't have a plan.
she wasn't being rational. She was
Mm-hmm.
acting on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It like, and I think you put it that like that's a perfect way to point it out. Is like, yeah, it would be way more rational for her to just like throw to just kill them, to slaughter them, but she doesn't know what she wants.
Right. Right. Okay.
So yeah, I think you're right. I don't like disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't do something that made sense, but in this instance, I think it makes sense that it didn't make sense, kind of.
Right, because it's just showing that she is kind of all over the place here.
Yeah, like she loves that they're protecting him, like because she's on the very edge of flipping around and like having a shift in perspective
Mm-hmm.
completely. She's real close, and so she's starting to see. I mean, I had another so I happened to be we were watching part of episode 5 recently, and like with my boys, and the climactic part where Luke, where Vader's like, I'm your father and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and so and he's like, come with me, together we'll kill the emperor and rule the galaxy as father and son,
Right.
and so I pause it. Of course, I always pause it and ask my kids if they understand, and talk about this, and I was like, okay, so Vader's like, he's done all these terrible things, and the only person who can really save him is going to be Luke, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's starting to feel this like kind of love a little bit for him, but it's twisted and weird. Like it's twisted by selfishness of like, let's rule the galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
like, but he's offering to share the galaxy with his son. Like he wants to be part of it. Like very clearly he's got more emotions than like, it's not a rational thing to be like, oh, this half-trained kid, like
Right.
what what would what makes him think that Luke would be any good at ruling the galaxy with him? Like,
Right.
it's not a rational thing. And so, we talked about like, well, he's starting to feel love again. He's starting to feel a little bit of good, but he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what to do with it. And I feel like that's the same thing as Reva here.
Right. She's starting to, and she just doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm
Um,
being long-winded about it.
no, you're good. Okay, so all of that's happening, and while that's happening, we're going back and forth to like this amazing final, like it's finally here. We get this showdown between Kenobi
Yeah.
and
Oh, and
Vader.
Leia snuck Lola into his
Yeah,
thing,
because
and I
he
was like,
he had that interaction with her where he
yeah,
said he might need to borrow her to keep his mind off things from being scared or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. She totally just snuck it on his ship. I
Yeah,
was like, oh, I don't know, just a very awe moment.
it is. Um, this this scene. Okay, so when this started, what were you thinking? Like, were you still thinking Qui-Gon was maybe gonna show up here, or
Yeah, I felt like Qui-Gon would be there pretty soon.
okay? Because I like this was starting, and I was like, okay, how is this gonna end? Because like we obviously know like they both get out of this alive, so
Right.
you're like, okay, like what's gonna happen here?
What were
Uh,
you thinking?
I literally had no idea what to expect because I was like, neither of them is going to die. So either
Hmm.
they're going to part and go their own ways, which I didn't think would happen, or, one of them is going to think the other one is dead and just leave in true, like, oh, I didn't cut off your head fashion. So yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know what to expect here. I was just so excited it was finally happening.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, but I was just hoping, like, I hope we can trust them. I hope we can trust them. I hope this isn't going to just get messed up. And it was really cool. Like, you kind of see a callback from episode 5 where, Vader's fighting Luke. Oh, yeah. So they're fighting with each other. I guess I don't want to, like, totally just fast forward it, but, like, oh, I did love this line. I'll talk about the callback in a minute, but I loved the line of, well, at the very start, Vader's like, "Have you come to kill me?" And Obi-Wan uses a Qui-Gon line. He says, "I will do what I must."
Yeah.
And that's just, like, he was like, you can't defy the council master to train Anakin. He says, and then Qui-Gon says, "I will do what I must, Obi-Wan, to
Yeah.
train Anakin." And it's just like, now, "I will do what I must" just refers to Anakin.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Oh, they had. Yeah. All just so many good lines in this entire back and forth here.
Well, it was so good. And then, yeah, and then, yeah, they fight for a while, and what was the other line I really liked? They had a few, just like you said, really good lines of, just back and forth.
Well, so the one that I liked it was later on,
Mhm.
because they're fighting and going back and forth, and then Vader eventually just, I don't want to say overpowers, but it does seem that way. He just buries
Oh,
Kenobi in rocks.
he says your strength has returned,
Yes.
but your weakness remains. Like, there's to him, they're two separate entities. Like, you can be weak and strong at the same time.
It's not woven together.
Right. It's not like, well, you're weak, therefore you can't be strong. It's, you have your strength, but there's also weakness there too. I don't know. It was an interesting viewpoint to have.
I liked it later on, which I mean, I might jump ahead here if we go back and forth, but eventually, like toward Kenobi and Vader going back and forth, and eventually Vader's like, you didn't fail me, like you didn't, you're not responsible for Anakin Skywalker dying, like I did, like I killed him. And
It's almost like proud of it a little bit.
yeah, and it was very eerie. I realize I've said that a couple
Hmm.
of times about him, but he had some really eerie lines that just showed that, like we've been saying, he's been stuck for so long, and it just
Yeah.
highlighted the fact that he is stuck, like, and he definitely is still stuck, but it's almost like he's falling further into this. It's like he's just spiraling more within this like self despair and all of this. Like he can't move forward because he's still spinning around in this.
Okay, so I actually I love that part. So yeah, he buries Kenobi. Kenobi, you know, comes back at another instance of like, why'd you just assume he's dead? And I love that
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that he's like, goodbye, master. I love that
I did
line.
like that, and this was actually where I thought like maybe it would end. I thought it would be a little bit anticlimactic if it did, but I was like, okay, well they're both alive, and like we know that
Yeah.
they both leave here alive, so like this makes
Qui-Gon
sense.
shows up and helps Obi-Wan out
Yeah, like
somehow.
something's
Yeah.
gonna happen where Kenobi gets out
Hmm.
of there alive. Vader thinks he's dead, and
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay,
Anyway,
so then there's the callback of like Kenobi does this huge force storm, and I reminded my kids, I was like, well, because they're like, look at all those rocks. My 4-year-old was like, oh, this is so cool. I was like, yeah, well, you have to remember, Kenobi was a Jedi master, and he was like, the power of a Jedi master is so much. He was so excited. But like watching Star Wars with your kids, it's transformative. It's amazing. Um, but yeah, he's so excited. And but then Vader like steals that move against Luke in episode 5 when they fight each other. So anyways, yeah, they fight and Obi-Wan gets the upper hand. And it's so creepy, like the voice modulator.
yeah,
I loved it. And then I a little bit disagree with you on like this him being stuck. I think has been stuck. I think this was a growth moment for Vader, actually.
okay,
I think he realized that his hatred of Obi-Wan wasn't warranted. He's like, no, you didn't fail me. I killed Anakin.
right,
I think he took ownership.
right, okay,
He's like, I'm what I am because of my actions, not you.
right.
You weren't the one.
But he's still so fixated on killing him.
I mean, he hasn't all the way grown, but think of their first fight
Yeah.
where he says, "I am what you made me.
Yes, yes, that's
You
true.
made me this way," and then this time he says, "I'm what I made.
Yeah,
I
I
made
did this.
myself." Hmm.
Yeah, which is fair. Um, yeah, this was I loved this whole second half of their fight was probably the best half of it. Like just
Hmm.
seeing Kenobi overthrow him and like use his lightsaber and slash his helmet, and you know exactly like you said, the voice modulator is kind of going in and out and you can see half of his face, and it's just like
Loved it. I loved it.
so it's so good. I will say, sorry to backtrack a tiny bit, when Vader covered him with the rocks and everything, and he's like, you have failed, master, and he had that line. Loved that line. I half expected him there to say that he had the high ground.
Oh,
I was
that
like
would have been
waiting
so
for it. I was
funny.
like, he's gonna do it. He's gonna throw it back in Kenobi's face.
Yeah, that's funny. I
Um,
didn't even think of that. That's good.
but he didn't. Anyway, so but like there was just so many good lines back and forth here, and then it was really sad though to just see like Kenobi just turned and walked away exactly like before and left him
Uh,
there.
well, and I love this too because in episode 4, he says to him, "Only a master of evil, Darth." Like he calls him Darth. But then at the end of this, instead of saying, "I am sorry," he calls him Anakin the whole time, and then Anakin's like, "No, I did," and then Obi-Wan's like, "Okay, great. So now you're Darth. I'm gonna call you Darth. You're not
Yeah.
Anakin anymore. You're like, you're dead to me. You're gone.
Yeah. And he says goodbye, Darth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was really good. And then so then you have the scene of Vader talking to the Emperor, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "We're gonna find him. We're gonna find him." And the Emperor's like, "Are you sure about? Are you sure this is a good idea?" Like he is, the Emperor is. He's wise on so many levels, really. Like they're evil, but
Right.
also,
But this goes back
you
to what
know,
we've been saying about him kind of feeling like he's stuck and fixated
right.
and not, seeing clearly, not matured enough at this point where, yeah, maybe he had that little bit of growth there where he took acceptance, like you were saying. But here, the Emperor is kind of like, hey, like maybe this isn't such a good idea.
No, well, I think that this reinforced that little bit of growth, though. I think you grow, and then sometimes if no one's there to reinforce it, you just like, oh, let's just go back to what I've been doing. It's more
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. But then he has this moment of like, no, he's nothing to me. We're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna forget him,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And
Like
that's
he
it.
just well, and I, in some ways, I think that's how it explains. Like, okay, like Bail Organa is probably on their like shit list. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't have said that word, but um, he's not. He's like on. He's on their most. Like they know he's a rat, but then they decide we're just not going to mess with Kenobi because that's not what's important. Like that hatred, you don't need that hate. Like focus on other things.
Right. Maybe.
Maybe
I don't know.
I,
I
I
just
think
I just took it more as him still being fixated on him and not getting over that hump yet, and the Emperor seeing that.
Oh, well, yeah, like I think the Emperor's like, hey, now don't do that. That's like bad. It's like he had this moment of growth, and
Yeah.
then the Emperor was like, and then he went back. He's like, no, we're gonna kill him. I hate him. And the Emperor's like, don't do that. And then so the way I interpreted it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that you're wrong, but the way I interpreted it was like him, no, he doesn't mean anything to me. I'm gonna let it go.
See, I interpret it as like when somebody's mad and you're like, oh, like what's wrong? They're like, I'm fine.
Okay, that
That
that could be it.
that's how I was just like he's just saying it to appease the Emperor.
Hmm. That's fair. That's fine. Fine as in like I accept that as like I like mine. I like mine, but I like yours too.
So
Who knows?
now you're
But
just making me want to rewatch the whole series start to finish so that I can
well,
take it
I
in
just
and see whether or not I still sit on that opinion.
well because Vader does eventually grow
Mm-hmm.
into into what he is in Episode 4,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like this might be that moment that he actually just
Where it
thinks
starts.
yeah a
Yeah.
little. Grow. It's such a weird thing to say because he's just like this awful person the whole time, but
Right. Right. Um. Okay.
I think
So
I think this fight was as good for him as it was for Kenobi. But go
yes.
ahead.
Um. So, but also like so he's done this. Kenobi's left, and Kenobi's now going after. He's going to Tatooine.
Yeah.
For Luke, and Reva's kind of had this whole epiphany moment of like because she's caught up with Luke to be
Hmm.
like, oh, this is probably a bad idea, and I don't actually want to do this.
So there's this really powerful thing of like so you remember in Episode 2
Mm-hmm.
where Anakin finds his mom and kills all those Tuskens and stuff, but then he comes back to the Lars home
Mm-hmm.
with a bundle in his arms, and it's his dead mom.
Yeah.
And the imagery is just so like they use the same location and everything. Riva has a bundle in her arms. She's
Mm-hmm.
on the Lars farm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's another Skywalker in her arms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we know he's not dead, but there's this really powerful parallel
Right.
there.
Where this
Like,
imagery calls back to it.
yeah, well, and Riva is, she's like, she doesn't want to be Anakin.
Yeah.
And the difference is Anakin brought someone dead to that farm, and Riva like brought someone who was alive to the farm. Like
Right.
am I Anakin? No, you're not. You've chosen not to be.
Right. Um, what did you think about this whole interaction then between her and Kenobi then? Like after this has happened and Owen and Barrow like realize that he's, not dead and are,
Hmm.
you know, happy about this.
Thank
Um,
goodness. Yeah.
and then Riva and Kenobi kind of have this interaction where she's, crying. She doesn't want to be Anakin like you've been saying.
Hmm.
What did you think?
I was like, great. Like more, more Jedi just running around in the galaxy. Because like now she's gonna have. I think. I mean, I just can't stop thinking she's gonna have her own show now.
Well,
I
so
think she's gonna have her own show.
I've heard rumors that they are like wanting to do a spin-off with her.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard any room. I just.
I don't know if it's actually been finalized or not, if it's confirmed, but and obviously like we don't know. It could be her like how did she fall in with the dark side? How did she or not the dark side, but
Hmm.
with like Anakin
Yeah.
and the Inquisitors, how did she or is it after this or like whether or not it actually happens. Um I thought this scene in particular was probably one of the weakest moments of the episode for me. I don't know what it is. I just don't have a lot of empathy
Hmm.
for her in these moments.
Okay, I've heard that. I I think she did a good job acting, and I think that they gave her kind of a weird storyline. Like the
Yeah,
script wasn't the very strongest.
I, it's definitely not the acting. Like I think she's a good actress, and I really, and like, I thought she was doing what she was supposed to do. I think it's just the storyline. Like I feel like she's just supposed to be more. Maybe it's just because of how her character was introduced. She's introduced so hostile and so cutthroat that to see her flip around like this, it just didn't feel natural. Like so to see it, I was just like,
Hmm.
why? Like it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel sincere.
I I think so. I mean, there's a certain beautiful symmetry here of like she realizes that killing an innocent person
Mm-hmm.
just to hurt someone who would hurt her
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like there's no logical sense in it. Like she wants justice, she wants this stuff. And I mean, I think it's the same thing that we've been talking about with Vader. Like she hasn't been able to grow. She's
Right.
just stuck in this like this situation of fear and hatred and self-loathing and just
Mm-hmm.
like nothing. And I think she's just like so hurting. She's so like and she's traumatized by the idea that like maybe she failed and maybe she's just like Vader and like Vader is so important to her in a lot of ways that she doesn't understand. And I just think there's a lot of that play going on in
Mm-hmm.
her. And I don't know. I think you're right. Like the episode, it was kind of weak. At the same time, I don't know. I guess I liked it a little bit. I liked also the idea that nobody is so far gone that they can't come back.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's Star Wars in its essence, really, of just like you know Vader. Like
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, I have to think this. Like, so what would they have done? What if Vader had survived? He kills the Emperor. Should he have just been let go?
Right.
Should they have just been like, you know what? Like you've done horrific things
Mm-hmm.
for decades and slaughtered people. Like,
But
but
you,
now,
but you want to repent now, and
right? Like it's more like, well, God may forgive you, but we're gonna kill you anyways.
right.
Like he probably should have just been executed, frankly.
Right.
Uh, but anyways, it's just this. I do like the idea of redemption, and I like that Obi-Wan is just like, well, that's up to you to decide now. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to write your own script here.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had to chuckle real hard because like if I ever wanted a lightsaber, I would go to Tatooine.
Right?
like and just like dig around in Tatooine
Just
forever.
you just go with one of those metal detectors and just wander.
Oh, seriously, like
Yeah.
how many?
How many are
How,
there?
oh, yeah, like Obi-Wan buries his,
Yeah.
like two, like Rey buries hers.
Mm-hmm.
Reva's got hers there. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the this repository of lightsabers.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so then we only have like a few more scenes left. So you've got. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
this was great when I can't frig now I can't remember the order it was done in. Did he go see Leia first or Luke?
Leia first.
Okay. Um.
Oh, I loved it. She got the holster from Tala and
Yeah.
she's wearing it, and you think her mom's the stern disciplinarian,
Mm-hmm.
and her mom's like, I love it.
Yeah.
And I suddenly was like, I don't know how I feel about her. I love her. Like, yay, she's a good mom. Like she's gonna let her daughter like do this somewhat eccentric thing.
Yeah. I thought it was great, and
It's wonderful.
I really liked so obviously like the whole interaction when Leia sees Kenobi when he gets off the ship is great. Um.
She just it's like you're excited to see your grandparents, but then you go to their house and their dog is there, and you just ignore your grandparents and
And
go pet the dog.
yeah,
Like,
when she gets her droid back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she just blows past him.
Mm-hmm.
It's also almost like a commentary on an episode 7 where Han is dead and Leia go like it. Chewie just blows right past Leia, and Leia goes for the hug with Rey, which she never even met Rey,
Yeah.
and she hugs Rey, and it's just, I don't know, the blow past hug thing is funny, but yeah,
Um.
it's wonderful.
I really liked here because I think some of like a lot of stuff that I had been hearing, and I'm sure you probably heard it too, was a lot of people were complaining about because she's been with him for so long that at the start of episode 4 when she says like sends the hologram to Kenobi and she's like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, and she starts this
Hmm.
message with you fought with my father.
The Clone Wars,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's very like formal, and people are saying it's not something that you would send to somebody that you've had this interaction with.
Yeah.
I personally, so I took it, and maybe this wasn't how it was supposed to be taken, so you'll tell me what you think, but he has this line with her where he tells her that like they have to be careful in the future because if people know, it could harm them and harm their families, and like they have to be careful with how they interact
Hmm.
with each other in the future. And I thought that was just such a good little like bow to be like, we can't act like we know each other.
Yeah, like don't like email me to say what's up
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something.
So now you have this start of episode 4 where it is like, hey, I don't know you, even though they do know each
Hmm.
other.
Yeah, there's a slight layer of, I like that. I hadn't really thought of that, but that is good.
Yeah, I thought it
You
was a
know,
good little like. That's how I took it. As soon as he said it,
yeah,
and I've watched it. I also watched the episode twice. I watched it
yeah, me
again, and
too.
I paid particular attention to that part, and I was like, yes, I
Yeah,
still take it that way.
yeah. This was the part that I teared up in. I think was it was just so precious. Just
Hmm.
everything, Leia. Oh, and I love the very start of this episode where he gives her the holster and he's like, "I'm not
Yeah,
going to give you a blaster, Leia.
yeah, you're
You're 10
10.
years old." Yeah. But then I love that, like, instead of just dismissing her as a child like he did at the very start of the show, he says, "You're 10 years old, but you won't always be."
Hmm.
Like, here's a holster. Like, remember, you're a fighter.
Hmm.
Oh, and dear Lord, this is the part that made me tear up, was when he said, I know your parents, basically,
Yeah,
And then he told her, like, you're this, and this from Padme, and this, and this from Anakin. And I was just like, like,
yeah.
just,
It was
just,
so good, so well
it was so
done.
perfect. It was really perfect. Yeah.
Hmm.
I can't say that enough. That was really well done.
Hmm.
And he makes an allusion. He's like, if you ever need help from an old man, She's like grandfather maybe
Yeah,
in one of
yeah,
those episodes, but he looks so young here. I'm like, how does he transition in 10 more years, or eight, or however many,
yeah.
to being Alec Guinness?
I
Like,
know, I know. It's such a.
but I mean, this made me so this in the next scene with Owen,
Mhm.
it, made me think. I think we're gonna get another show because he looks so young and revitalized, and he tells Bale, he's like, if you ever need help, just call me. I'm
Yeah.
available. Like, it opens the doors real wide. He's like, if you ever need help, like,
Hmm.
it's just an open end. And Bale Organa's like, yeah, I'm starting a rebellion. I think I'm gonna need some freaking help,
Hmm.
but
Right.
from a Jedi? Are you kidding me? Of course I'm going to need help.
Well, like, I agree. I think we probably will get a second season because, I mean, they did originally say this was supposed to be a limited series, so it's just the 6 episodes. But uh, I think I think we will get one. I think they all want to do a second one.
I think so. I think they do. Uh, so let's weigh in on it at the
Okay.
end if they're going to make another one, and
Okay.
what our thoughts are, because I definitely have some thoughts on it, just like you have thoughts. But but okay, so you shed all your tears.
Yes.
You're done crying.
I
Like,
did
thank
not
God.
cry during
Okay.
this episode.
Okay. I'm talking about me here,
Oh,
but
okay. Sorry. Go on.
yeah, I was all teary eyed, and then he goes to Tatooine, and he packs up his cave. Probably doesn't even leave a note for that freaking Jawa. You
No.
know, he does leave his generator there though, or whatever it is. So
And he has this whole like longing look back at it and then leaves.
yeah,
Hmm.
well, it's a symbol of
Hmm.
his old broken self. He's like, I'm not going to live that life anymore.
Yep. Um, yeah. So he leaves and then he heads over to Owens and you know
Well, I love this exchange because he tells Owen, he's like, basically, I trust you.
right.
Like, before, Owen's like, there's this Jedi who just like stalks us and doesn't trust us to keep him safe, like
Hmm.
keep Luke safe, and like, and then yeah, he has this moment of like, just be his dad. You're good. I'm gonna just let you be,
Right.
and that trust is repaid by trust of its own.
Right. And he's like, okay, you can meet him.
Oh, it was so
Oh.
yeah. He goes up and the iconic hello there.
Oh man, I would have been happy to be honest with you if the episode had ended right there.
Oh, I mean, that would have been. I thought that was the end.
I thought that was the end too. I was like, that is a brilliant place to cut it.
Yeah.
Uh, but they didn't.
Well, and I think this ties into more of maybe there's going to be this. So,
Hmm.
oh, and I do want to just call out, like, I noticed it in the first episode too, the toy that he got for Luke.
Yes.
Like, that's the toy that Luke is actually like playing with in episode 4. Like, he's still like flying the skyhopper thing. Like,
Hmm.
it's a that's a cool continuity thing of like, he gives this thing to Luke, and it's such a significant gift that Luke still has it in his possession
Yeah.
10 years later.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I
What
agree.
he's,
I
when he's
noticed.
cleaning those dreads.
I noticed that too, and and he's carrying it again here to give it to him. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, so the final scene,
Hmm.
because he's going down, he's going to go down some canyon, Beggar's Canyon or some other, but, um, and who shows up but
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon.
Yeah. The,
And
were you happy that it was actually him showing up as like a Force ghost and not just his voice?
oh yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to see him.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really. He looked a little older, a bit more decrepit, but I mean, that happens.
Yeah. Hmm.
People age, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And he's like, I've always been here. And, he's like, oh, we've got a ways to go yet. Like, you and I are going to have some adventures.
Right. So maybe this continues into the next.
Right. Oh, so there's this other part. Okay, so in Rebels, season three, season four, whatever it is,
Hmm.
Maul finds where Kenobi is,
Hmm.
and he goes to confront him. And when Kenobi eventually wins, and Maul asks Kenobi, on like he's about to die, and he asks Kenobi about Luke. He says, "Is he the chosen one?"
Hmm.
And Kenobi says, "Yes." And right now in Kenobi, he doesn't know that. Like at some point, he comes to the conclusion that
Okay.
Luke is the chosen one,
Right.
and so that I feel like that could be the thread that they use.
Right. And just weave that. That would be good.
I mean, that's just speculation on my end, of course. I just
Right. No, that makes sense.
it's like, oh, we were just no, Anakin wasn't the chosen one. We were off by a generation. Prophecy. What are you gonna do? Like,
Whoopsies, got it wrong.
oops. Yeah,
Um,
like just took the death of the whole Jedi Order to make us realize that we were off by a generation. Damn it all.
oh man.
But,
Um, yeah, but it was okay. So overall, as a series, what did you think?
this had everything that I wanted.
Hmm.
I didn't go into it with any expectation other than like, well, it's got to be well produced because we're not playing with like if Mandalorian had failed,
Hmm.
which I loved it. I didn't want it to fail,
Hmm.
but if it had, it would have been like I never cared about this guy in the first place.
Yeah,
He's totally
exactly.
new. Like screw that guy. And if Boba Fett had failed, which some people think that was a failure,
Hmm.
I tended to like it, but. And my dad just texted me actually just a minute ago asking who was that blue-faced guy that he was fighting, like because he doesn't know.
Right,
He doesn't know who Cad Bane is.
right.
But anyways, I just thought that was just a couple minutes ago. He totally did, but because he just finished watching it. But if that had failed, it's like who cares about Boba Fett? Like
Hmm.
he was, at the end of the day, he's not that important either.
But this is a
But
main character,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he, yeah,
like you don't mess with these important characters without good reason,
yeah.
and you need to give it the care and the attention that it's given. And I thought that this was there was like added pressure, I guess,
Right.
and I thought they acquitted themselves quite well, frankly.
So did I. I really enjoyed it. I was trying really hard not to be too excited for it or disappointed for it until it was over. Like I really like to see the whole picture.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Wise.
and I thought start to finish it was great because it wasn't really about getting Leia back. It was about getting Kenobi back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what this whole season
Yeah.
was about. It was about pulling Kenobi out of the spiral, which coincidentally, I've used that to describe Vader. They're both in these spirals, and maybe they're both now being pulled
Well,
out of it.
it's like they needed to confront each other. They
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 needed
needed
closure.
closure. There we go. We figured it out. We solved it.
Ah, yeah.
So good.
So that's what it was about, though. Like, it's not about him chasing, Leia across the galaxy trying to find her and bring her back. Like, it's about finding himself and getting back to himself and Vader getting out of this and getting this closure. And now you can move forward with the rest of the storylines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
actually. I think yeah, like that's what because he was like, we're beaten, we lost. Like, he tells the Jedi, he's like, no, like we're not gonna stop trying to Jedi. Like stop trying to make Jedi happen,
Yep.
you know. And like he's like, hey, I have it on good authority that Tatooine is a great place to just bury lightsabers.
Yeah. No one will
So
find him.
I highly recommend that you just go bury your lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like and I guess yeah, I think feel like they acquitted themselves well. I think there were a lot of people who went into this look like trying. So okay, there's a million and a half uh, opinions out there about how Disney has done
Mm-hmm.
with Star Wars, and there's a lot of fans who aren't best pleased with Disney. They for whatever reason they don't think that Disney has been a good steward of the Star Wars franchise,
Okay.
and I think that there's some validity to some of their arguments and stuff. There's certainly some things that Disney could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
And so but I think those people, the people who have been arguing this, that like they have been looking for, like they've tried to dislike it, and that to me, if you genuinely like just went in with an open mind, I don't see how you could come out of this
Mm-hmm.
thinking that this was a total abject failure.
Right. And
I just don't see it. I don't see how that's possible.
I think part of it too is just accepting that there's no way they can give you every single answer and make everything tie up perfectly. Like they just can't do it. You're going to be there. First of all, it's just going to be too much time. You're going to be there forever. There just has to be some aspects of the storytelling that you kind of need to forgive a few gray spots or look over them and draw your own conclusions. Like how you and I are interpreting things, that's us drawing our conclusion to something and tying these strings together to make the story
Mm-hmm.
make sense, right? So I think that if you go in with that mindset, like it's even easier to just be grateful that you're getting even more content in this universe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, really, like, what was George Lucas doing with Star Wars? Really, like
right.
a couple shows, like the Clone Wars were cool, and he's gonna have another different show that he was, but like it was all gonna have to be run by him, and yeah, I'm just grateful. I love that we're getting all the stuff that we're getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
So
So possibly season 2
yeah, so
and
all
possibly
right,
a Reva spinoff.
yeah, or maybe that's the one and the same.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe Kenobi meets up with Riva. I think they have to be real cautious though here. If they do decide to make a sequel,
Mm-hmm.
sequel show, they have to have a good reason for it. I don't think that him just like going off gallivanting about like the adventures of Obi-Wan. Like
Yeah, no, they can't do that.
yeah, like you can't.
Because then what will end up happening is you'll get episodes that people are like, well, that was a filler episode. Nothing happened here.
Yeah, like, oh, he used his lightsaber some.
And you
You
can't
know,
have filler episodes in Kenobi. You just can't.
no, no, you need, it needs to be a significant, important thing.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing that like I'm willing to be convinced, I just don't know how you show me that. Like so the you say all the actors want to be involved again, and I agree. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and Hayden Christensen has said he wants to come back. Obi-Wan said, or Ewan McGregor says he wants to come back. I think everyone would be willing.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I don't know how, like, so Obi-Wan and Vader just left each other
Yeah.
on a perfect level right now.
So how do you bring both of them in?
And if they do it well, like they did a great job this time. Like, they got their closure, like we just said, like they find that was perfect,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next thing to make all their interactions make sense again? Like,
Yeah.
just bringing them back for bringing them back's sake. I mean, I feel like they handled it with a lot of care, and they did a
Yeah.
really good job here, but they have to be real cautious
Yeah, I agree.
about bringing them back.
Yeah, because then you will get filler episodes, or you'll just get episodes where, or a storyline where Kenobi's doing something, and then they just show on the side what Vader is doing for the sake of having Vader in it, like,
Right.
which I don't think would be good. Like, you can't do that.
These are main characters from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not just new, random crap. But so, like, I think tentatively, if they ran it well, it's like, well, what if Obi-Wan had some interactions with like the local gangs on Tatooine, like,
Right.
who are messing with the Lars, like maybe a smaller story. But at the same time, I want to see little Leia again too. She was pretty awesome.
Right? She was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was probably my favorite part of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of other things, but I think at the end. She was just too delightful
Mm-hmm.
to ignore. So,
Man.
anyways,
All
we've
right.
probably gone on it too much length, but this is a really good show.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the end of Kenobi.
Hmm.
We'll figure out what we do next.
Yeah, we'll get like, is it Cassian next or Bad Batch next for Star Wars?
I think it's Bad Batch.
Hmm. I think it's actually Cassian and then Kenobi's, or and then I think Bad Batch is going to be running at the same time as Cassian, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I
Interesting.
think I think so. So maybe it's Bad Batch than anyways. It's exciting though,
Yeah.
one way or another.
More shows.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we call it good? I think we're good to call it good.
Good to call it good?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Let's call it good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. May you always find water and shade.